There's been a lot of important news happening this week, and I'm delighted to say joining me to bring some clarity and common sense is Liberal Senator Alex Antic. Senator, great to have you on again.
Thank you, Cory. Clarity and common sense tonight?
Well, we don't get much of it in the federal parliament at all, except from you, Gerard Rennick, Pauline Hanson and a few others. But of course you find yourself in trouble for all that sort of stuff, don't you?
Well, I'm not sure it's exactly right, but you are correct when you say I find myself in trouble. So
OK, so 50-50.
Yeah, no.
Let me start. I mentioned Pauline Hanson. Let me start with her motion, which was up not this week but the week before.
Correct.
About an inquiry into experimental child gender reassignment treatments. Now, it was voted down, I think 38 to 25. What got me was that a number of coalition senators voted against the motion, including the Senate leader, Simon Birmingham. Now, how is it that a Senate leader votes against something that should be basically party policy and that the majority of the senators obviously support in your party?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, Cory, that's probably a question best left for Simon, I suppose. But just to expand on that, there were 20 from the Liberal side that voted, and some Nationals as well, plus the One Nation senators, of course. So, and look, this was a conscience vote. It was taken as a matter of conscience, and that allows people to pick their side, if you like. The motion itself was pretty non-controversial, I thought. It was simply referring it off to the Community Affairs Legislation Committee for a look at the sort of therapies that are being given to kids, puberty blockers and surgery, those sorts of things. Now, I have a particular issue with kids being afforded this kind of treatment at such a young age, and I know you do as well. So I don't, from where I sit, that all seems pretty reasonable just to take it off to a committee.
But hang on, of course it is, and this is what I can't get. How does it become a conscience vote in the Liberal Party about having an inquiry into a medical procedure which is now being widely discredited, right? You don't even have to have a position on this, but to say, well, let's get to the bottom of what's happening in this space. Are we being told the truth? Why is Sweden, why is Finland, why is the UK running away from this in some US states and Australia's pursuing it? Why is that a conscience vote? Well, it's like the Liberal Party is straddling this barbed wire fence and in the process doing a bit of gender reassignment surgery itself.
Well, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it was a great analogy. Probably not best choice. But look, I don't know the answer to why that was done. That was a decision of leadership, and it does happen from time to time on other issues. I don't see this as being a particularly controversial decision to have just accepted. I would have preferred to have seen it taken as a party position that we simply support the referral to a committee, but that's the beauty of a party that allows members to and parliamentarians to choose to vote on their conscience. It's a good thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's great. It's called crossing the floor. That's what it is. And your Senate leader has essentially crossed the floor and called it a conscience vote for convenience for him. Now, Pauline Hanson, of course, hasn't let this go. She didn't hold back in this week's Please Explain cartoon. Have a look at this.
Oh, Harold, it's showtime.
What are we peddling today, Mr. Burler? More vaccines?
Not anymore. We've got to cash in on this trans movement, Harold. It's a $200 billion a year industry.
200 billion?
We've got to push these. Puberty blockers. They taste like strawberries.
You know, I remember when I used to teach kids not to take drugs.
Drugs are big business, Harold. Now let me put my hand up you and let's get on with the show.
Everyone, shush, shush. It's starting. Hey, kids.
Hey, Harold.
Let's play the tape.
Hey children, how you going with the most confusing time of your life? Are you struggling with those changes that are happening to your bodies? How's that social pressure to fit in? That unquenchable thirst for acceptance from everyone around you? Sounds like you've got gender dysphoria. Congratulations, that's something to be celebrated. And thanks to my good friends at Big Pharma, we've got a whole range of goodies just for you. Try these chemical castration pills. It's the very same drug they give to those sex offenders, so you know that they work.
All right, Senator, I just question what message the Coalition is sending here. We're going to allow children to make whatever life-changing decisions they want, even though gender-affirming care, as I mentioned, has been dumped right across the world, and now it has been lampooned by one of the great political disruptors. And I know this resonates with so many Australians. When will the Liberal Party get their act together?
Oh, look, Cory, I don't know that it really is a question of getting your act together, but I think this is a sort of issue that needs more exploration, and that's why going off to a committee was something that I voted for. And But look, I really do have a very grave amount of concern about this treatment. We've seen it Tavistock in the UK being wound back. And in fact, I think we need to be stronger about this. I'm actually in the process at the moment of exploring a private senator's bill to effectively ban the treatment, gender reassignment surgery under 18, the use of puberty blockers under 18 as well, which, I think is the sort of thing that people really are looking for. I mean, kids can't get a tattoo until 18. They can't drink until they're 18. And we understand there are a lot of difficult machinations of this, but the kids need to have the care and consideration that's needed, and the kind of medical treatment they need in terms of counselling and those sorts of things. But really to have a situation where kids are making these decisions, sometimes reinforced by by those around them, and we're now seeing the detransitioners in other parts of the world come forward. I think we need to take some pretty strong action on this. So that's something that I'm exploring, and I'll have to, of course, take that through the party room and discuss it with colleagues. I've discussed it with some already, but I think we are seeing this in other countries. So many countries have already banned this sort of treatment for kids under 18.
And I support you in this. I think it's actually a very important thing. But doing it as a private senator is one thing. Taking it to the party room, getting your support of the Liberal Party would send a very strong message. Not that they are anti-trans or whatever it is. Whatever trend is going to go that way. It is that you are interested in the long-term health and well-being of children.
That's right.
And all the evidence now is pointing to a fact that a lot of people who undergo these irreversible processes come to regret it later on.
You're absolutely spot on. This is, and it presumably will be characterised in those terms by the left of politics. It is not that, and we do need to be. I think now drawing a very strong line in the sand about this sort of treatment for kids. I mean, there are some horrific stories when people actually become aware of what we are talking about, and that cartoon does a very good job, I think, at sort of exploring some of the themes. I think the left do find all of the touch points to try and turn this into something it's not. This is entirely 100% about caring for kids, making sure they're looked after, but making sure they don't fall into mistakes along the way, and so that's the aim of the game.
It's prudent. It's this move to holistic treatment, and adults can then make decisions for themselves.
Correct.
All right, I'm going to draw a loose segue here. Yep. There was some good news from the Coalition this week. I saw Shadow Energy Minister Ted O'Brien confirm the Coalition is considering a coal to nuclear sort of transition as a centrepiece for energy policy. Now, I agree with that, but I've got to go back and say people have been in the Coalition have been pushing this for decades, but even the last decade, warning about all the horrors that were to come. They squibbed at every single point. They didn't go through it when they didn't make the change, the transition. They didn't have the courage of their convictions. Why now?
Well, Cory, of course, you've been an early adopter on this issue. You've been a pro-nuclear guy since before it was trendy. And I have too, I think. I think I've been a strong advocate for this for a long period of time. Look, I think we're now seeing the community coming with us a little bit on this. The Minerals Council have done a lot of polling on this, and it seems to be that there's a consistent push towards people becoming accepting of this and rejecting this old-fashioned view that it's dangerous or that it's expensive. We'll let the market decide that. That's my view, and it's good to see. It's good to see the party exploring these sorts of concepts. I think the other thing that's coming out now is we're seeing this, rapid deterioration of the grid, the costs associated with rolling out, solar and wind, and the infrastructure costs that go with that. So the arguments about, and they're nonsensical arguments about renewables being the cheapest form of power, that is just completely nonsensical. Professor Ian Plimer and others have discredited that from a long way away. There needs to be another solution. There is probably a place for renewables in the future, but there's got to be a transition path. And nuclear is being used well by other countries all over the world. Places like Canada have reaped the rewards. We want to, particularly here in South Australia, we should be actively pursuing that, in my view, so that we are, almost the nuclear epicentre of the world, where we dig it up, we use it for energy, and then we store it for ourselves in other countries, and then we spend the rest of the time just rolling around in hungies.
And it's extraordinary when you think about people who complain about the cost of nuclear energy. Yeah. It's cheaper in France than it is in Germany, power prices.
That's right.
People who say it takes too long to roll out, well, they're rolling out literally dozens of these reactors in a very short space of time.
Correct, yep.
And someone contrasted it with the Snowy River hydro, which was meant to be ready, I think, this year or last year. it's going to be 2029, and by that time they will have built half a dozen nuclear reactors in these other countries.
I mean, this is exactly right. I just think, look, and I'm sure you take a similar view on this, that there is a small legislative amendment that needs to be made in order to make this happen. It's a single line in the Environment Protection Biodiversity Act. Let's let the market to work it out.
And here's the point. The Coalition reviewed that a couple of years ago, I reckon, and that was the time to do it. And they didn't do it, they squibbed it. And that's what frustrates me, and I know it frustrates a lot of people. It doesn't commit to nuclear energy, it just says we're not going to have a blanket ban, we'll assess it on its merits.
Well, I'm all in there swinging for it, I know you are
You're
too.
swinging at all the right things. Unfortunately, we need a few other people stepping up to bat as well. Okay, there's been some news about The Voice this weekend. New South Wales opposition leader Mark Speakman has revealed he's going to support an Indigenous voice to Parliament, going against the federal party's position. Have a listen to Anthony Albanese responding to this yesterday.
I congratulate Mark Speakman, the leader of the coalition in New South Wales, the opposition leader, for his very clear statements that he will be voting yes and supporting yes in the referendum campaign, following on from Dominic Perrottet's support for a yes vote.
Alex, you've got a leader of the largest state in South Australia, the opposition leader, a Liberal, who's now come out in support of Labor's radical, divisive and racist agenda. They're my words. And the Prime Minister is now, walking and waving around saying, look how connected I am with the rest of them. Why do you keep putting Labor-like Liberals into leadership positions?
Well, look, Cory, as you know, that is the beauty of the party. It does allow people to, take their own views, as I have done myself over the years, and, you before me, and that is a good thing, not a bad thing. But, we would share very different views, myself to Mark Speakman, on that issue. I, for the longest time, have said I don't understand why we'd ever sanction anything which divides on race. But people are entitled to their views, and just pleased to see that, and the state Liberals here, of course, David Spears has come out and the party here have actively rejected The Voice and will campaign against it. So, South Australia is the place to be. It's the most solid division in the country, Cory.
Thanks to your hard work. But what's interesting about The Voice, just quickly in South Australia, is that they've got a state legislated voice, and the government has basically suspended it. And I suspect that's because they fear about what it might cook up before this referendum comes along.
Well, and we saw a bit of backpedalling on the WA cultural heritage laws as well. I think there's a bit of damage control going on there because people are now actively looking at the surrounds and saying, well, what's next? What is next to this? And we saw that through the Uluru Statement. Anyone that wants to read those 28 pages can go ahead and do it and be as concerned as you and I are.
I'm waiting for the first person to refer to it as the Ayers Rock Statement from my heart. Anyway, let's go on to Labor for a second. The government has abandoned plans to establish a low-level nuclear waste facility near Kimber, which is in South Australia, after the federal court ruled in favour of a local Aboriginal people who oppose the use of traditional land for the project. There's concerns, of course, that this could impact our commitment under the AUKUS agreement. The Kimber's mayor came out with this statement. Have a listen to this. This is a kick in the guts for our community who have invested 8 years of extraordinary effort and determination to do what is right for our region and in the national interest to create a suitable facility for Australia's low and medium level radioactive waste. And we are yet to receive any official correspondence or even a phone call from the Minister or the Department on the decision and the reasons for the decision. Now, Alex, Labor are committed under AUKUS to have a high-level waste facility for their nuclear submarine spent material, and they can't even have a low to medium-level waste repository agreed that had already basically been done, and they won't fight for it. Now we're going to have that stuff stored in, hospitals and under stairwells and in sheds.
That's right, and Lucas Heights, which is rapidly filling. Look, this is, this is now, frankly, a political problem for the Australian Labor Party, which is a terrible way to put it, but they have bought this problem by not challenging this decision. As I said, Lucas Heights, it's running out of space. I think there's also a need to do this by 2028, I think, from the ARPANZA, or the regulatory authority, also have put some deadlines in there. And when you factor into top of that the AUKUS agreement, which is going to have the need for high-level radioactive waste, there's a range of problems that need to be addressed. Now, I've been to Kimber, been up there several times to have a look at the site. Perfectly reasonable site. The local community were all on board, 10 years of consultation. And remember, we are talking about low-level to intermediate-level waste. Basically, most of it is gloves and gowns, which, as you say, is being stored in hospitals all around the country. This doesn't make any sense.
It's crazy. Now, I've got 1 minute, but I've got to ask you this. The ABC has decided to quit Twitter. Now, I'm loving Twitter, right? So
You're very prolific.
A bit more freedom on it.
Prolific tweeter or Xer.
But ABC has quit because they don't like the free speech under Elon Musk and they say it's too hateful and abusive. But they're maintaining their presence on TikTok, which, of course, is a Chinese Communist Party spy app. How do you respond to that?
Well, it does seem that all of a sudden there are I see there are a number of ABC commentators that have decided they're on, they're off, they don't like Twitter, they do like Twitter, they don't like it. Look, I've only joined Twitter since Elon's taken over, and who knows what he's doing with it, but it's a much better space. I think it's a lot better space than it was before, and I only get my usual amount of abuse there, so I can't judge. I don't know whether it's more or less. It just seems to be a normal amount of abuse for me.
Same day, different platform. But, maybe the ABC just doesn't like the truth, which is why they won't like you and me talking, because that's what we cover, the truth, the facts.
We love the truth.
And we're never frightened of it.
Correct.
Senator Alex Antic, thank you for joining me on Bernardi tonight.